This tutorial video is actually inspired by episode 119 of our podcast, where I had Debbie Tannenbaum on to talk about her elective course around tech and technology. She is a tech coach, and she really wants to help students. So if you haven't listened to that, it's a really good one to listen to. But even if you haven't, you can dive in here. So what we're talking about is Debbie looks at the standards in the middle of our episode, and she thinks what do I need to teach the students? And from that's where we actually figure out what the project idea is going to be, in a sense of what's the authentic project that's going to make students feel like true tech leaders in the building and help spread the capacity of using tech to beyond the students in the class, and take ownership of supporting students, families, and teachers in the school community to actually feel like they are using tech to be better human beings and to inspire our community. So that all comes from digging into the standards. And then so we go from standard to project. Let's look at how we did that. A tech project. She is using ISTE standards for students. And so these are the ones that we looked at. Now there are 7 here. I know sometimes there's a lot of standards for whatever your teachers are teaching, but here we have empowered learner, we have digital citizen, knowledge constructor, innovative designer, computational thinker, creative communicator, and global collaborator. So even just those 7 sometimes feels like a lot. When we dig into the actual language of each, right, we're looking at leveraging technology, taking an active role. So we have choosing, achieving, demonstrating competency. This is connected to their learning goals, right? Digital citizen, we see rights, responsibilities, opportunities, interconnected digital world. Safe, legal, ethical. Okay, so now my brain is starting to think about the applications, and you can kind of coach teachers to think about the applications of these specific standards to whatever students are living in their lives right now. What's a current event? What's happening in their lives? How do they interact with technology? How do they use YouTube? How do they use social media? Do these things start to resonate? So you could even do kind of an unpacking lesson where students are looking at this and saying all right, notice, wonder. What are the words you see that are kind of relevant to you? And what does it make you wonder about? Or what's a connection that you can make? You could also just do this with a team of teachers, right? Knowledge constructor. So they're constructing knowledge, producing creative artifacts, meaningful learning experiences, not just for themselves, but for others as well. Okay, interesting, right? So now I'm starting to think about, and if you've listened to the episode, you know that Debbie and I were starting to think about how do students kind of create something for others? So they help others use technology. And they're creating kind of these innovative videos and tutorials that are going to live in a platform where anyone can access them, even students from other districts. Innovative designer, okay? So they identify and solve problems. Okay, so now I'm thinking about, what problems exist in students' lives that they can use technology to solve? Computational thinker. So again, they are developing and testing solutions. Okay, so they're not just dreaming up a solution, but they're actually putting it into action and seeing if this actually solves the problem. Okay. This is totally aligned to what we do in project-based learning with a justice stance, right? We're advancing justice. We're choosing a problem that exists in our community. We are working to solve it. So this is actually very aligned, right? And so then we have this communication element where we're expressing ourselves. We are globally collaborating. So thinking about the local and global implications, we might have students choose a problem, again, because we want the choice, which was up here. We want the selection of a problem that is resonating for students in their local communities, but also that there is a global connection. They might do a comparison to a challenge in another community and a global perspective. They might study the problem both locally and globally. And then ultimately, they are co-constructing knowledge, right, with the teacher, with the class. They are innovatively designing a solution. They are testing that. And they are collaborating with others in their local and global communities to be able to put it into practice. And they're going to communicate out either through the actual thing, whatever it is, the project themselves that they're creating, or even at the end, they create something, they test it, they implement it. There's the solution, there's the project, but then they're actually putting it all together into kind of a narrative or communication, whatever, presentation perhaps, where they're sharing what they did for their project. That's fine too. So we think, again, unpacking this with the lens of what does this mean for our project? Because our project is going to be assessed by a rubric that we're using, ideally through the whole course, that is based on those standards. So where do we see opportunities to do some of these things as a project? And then what does that mean to be able to hit all of the things? What does our project need to be? And what are some ideas that come to mind? So this is literally the thinking that I would do around what is your project for your unit going to be. And that's what we did with Debbie. This is one reason I like to always start with the standards so that you can start having the conversations and thinking about the project through the lens of the standards. If you're not clear on your priority standards, I would not go above 8. I think 7 was a lot. Just as we saw, that's a lot to unpack and make sure that we're factoring into the final project. But that's where I'd start. Identify your standards and then have the conversations. Unpack each standard and think about, where does this fit into the project? What might a project look like?